Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm gonna do a quick video, which will probably still be 10 or 15 minutes. But before we get into all that, I wanna go ahead and let you know that, I need you to subscribe. I need you to hit the like button. I need you to leave a comment for the algorithm, and it would be great if you shared the video, even if you don't like it, I would appreciate that. I was hired by a company called Home Title Lock. And what they do is they protect your house from, kind of like how you have identity theft protection, where someone monitors your credit report to make sure that your identity doesn't get stolen. Well, Home Title Lock monitors they monitor the title of your house. Now, I only mention this because it's funny because they just started running these commercials on CNN. And when I was locked up, when I was in Coleman, I remember seeing these commercials. I remember seeing all these commercials. They were like infomercials in the morning. Like I would wake up early in the morning before most people were up, and I'd go and I'd turn on the TV and drink coffee. And I remember flipping through the channels one time, and these infomercials showed up. And I ended up watching some of the infomercials because they were on. It was Home Title Lock, and I just remember thinking, wow, that's what this is a company that protects homeowners from doing what I was doing. Recently, in the last 5 or 10 years, that has become more and more. That crime has become more and more prevalent. There was a rash of those types of frauds in New York about 5 or 6 years ago. I remember friends of mine and people on the street were mailing me newspaper articles about it. Say, this is what you were doing. Well, what these guys in New York were doing was they were basically going in, they would find homes that had no mortgages on them. And then they would transfer the mortgage out of someone's name into somebody else's name. They'd put the house up on the market and they'd sell the home. So if this was a home that was boarded up or it was obviously not being taken care of, it was boarded up and had been sitting around for 5 or 10 years, but there was no mortgage on it, then they would transfer the title from one person to another person, and then they would sell that home. What I did was obviously it was different than that, although I've done that, not exactly like that. But so what I would do is I would either rent a house or I would buy a house from someone. And then I would go downtown and I would satisfy the loan on the home. So you buy a house and I buy the house as a fictitious person like Brandon Green, for instance. So I buy a house in the name of Brandon Green and I get a loan from Countrywide. Well, then once I've got the loan from Countrywide, I would go downtown and I would satisfy the loan from Countrywide. And then I'd turn around and I would borrow another mortgage on the house. Or I'd take the identity of, let's say, a homeless person, and he would have no credit, but I'd take his identity, I'd get a driver's license in his name and social security card in his name, get all of his information. And then I'd go and I'd buy a house and I'd get the owner to owner finance a $250,000 house. Once all those documents were recorded, I'd go downtown to public records and I would pull up the mortgage that was on the house, and I'd create a satisfaction of mortgage, a fake satisfaction of mortgage, and I'd file it. So now the mortgage that's on the house just disappeared. Now there's no mortgage, and the house is in my name. A $250,000 house is in my name, well, the name of a homeless person that I have an ID or a driver's license in their name. So I open up a bank account. I go and contact a bunch of hard money lenders, and I ask the hard money lenders to come out, and then they would lend me money on the house, so I'd borrow money on the house. So I could borrow on a $250,000 house, I could borrow $1 million from 4 different guys, 5 different people, and then I put the money in the bank, and then I take the money out of the bank and I take off. What happens is this company, Home Title Lock, they monitor people's title. So if there's anything at all that happens to your title, it notifies you immediately, like, hey, one of your mortgages disappeared, or hey, the deed to your home was just transferred. Well, the reason I tell you this is what's funny, is that those commercials that I did, I flew to Oklahoma. They contacted me. They actually contacted me 6 months ago, maybe 8 months ago, and they wanted me to fly out to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. They wanted me to fly out to Oklahoma and shoot an infomercial. Okay, that's cool. I was like, yeah, cool. So we talk about it. You know, we end up negotiating like a price for what I'm going to charge them. They fly me out. I stay there for a couple days. We shoot some different scenes. And while I was there, I was actually interviewed by Newt Gingrich. I was sentenced to 26 years in federal prison for bank fraud, wire fraud, government document fraud, wire fraud against the United States government, money laundering, social security fraud. I'd committed fraud involving 109 houses in the Tampa Bay area. How many properties did I falsely buy or acquire in multiple names and borrow against? I mean, it's around 150. If you don't know who Newt Gingrich is, he used to be Speaker of the House, 10, 15 years ago. And so I'm interviewed by him. I was interviewed by a couple of different people, but one of them was Newt Gingrich. So what's funny about that is that the other day, all of a sudden I get this text message from a friend's wife, and she says, hey, my father-in-law just contacted me and said, hey, your buddy Matt Cox was just on CNN being interviewed by Newt Gingrich. Now, I wasn't being interviewed on CNN. It's not like I was on CNN being interviewed. It was actually a commercial. He just didn't realize, I think, because of the way it's set up, maybe it didn't seem like a commercial to him, and he thought I was on CNN. I wasn't. Anyway, what's funny is then maybe an hour later, I get another text message from someone saying, hey, I just saw you I was watching CNN. I saw a commercial with you on it being interviewed.
Actually owned a mortgage company, and it slowly developed, and you just learned the particular skill set that it required.
And were you surprised how easy it was?
It's extremely easy. It's easier than credit card fraud.
And why is that?
In order for me to take your house, all I have to do is go to public records, create a document, file that document, take the deed in your name, and transfer it to someone else that I'm in control of. And then I can borrow against the house or sell the house. And depending on how aware of the situation you are, you may have no clue until you find out that your house has been sold or till several banks are foreclosing on you.
And, LOL, and oh my gosh, that's so cool. So then I get, the following day I get a couple of emails, and somebody actually videoed it with their phone and shot me the little, the video. Hey bro, you're on CNN. So that was funny. Well, here's the interesting part about that is, I was visiting my mom a couple days ago. I'm visiting my mom, and we're sitting there, this is in the morning, and she had CNN on. Now, the sound is off, but the actual video was up and running. I'm sorry, the TV was on, but there was no sound. We were just sitting there having breakfast, because I have breakfast with her probably, at least 3 days a week we have breakfast. I see her maybe 4 days a week, but sometimes more. But typically I always have breakfast with her at least 3 days a week. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden I notice on TV, I look up, now her nurse is there. She has full-time care, so she has a nurse. Her nurse is sitting on the couch, and my mom has always given me a hard time. Like, she's just not impressed with me at all. Just rolls her eyes, it's comical. Well, we're sitting there and we're eating and we're watching CNN, and suddenly I noticed Newt Gingrich is on TV, and I look and I see Home Title Lock, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's the commercial. And then I show up, I go, Mom, I said, look, who's that? And then it flashes back to Newt Gingrich. She goes, that's Newt Gingrich. And I go, yeah, but who's that? And then I flash on there, and she goes, is that you? And I went, yeah, that's me. Well, you're on TV. I said, I'm on TV. I said, that's a commercial. Remember I told you about the commercial? I'm on CNN right now. I said, that's a commercial running on CNN. Look, that's me. I'm being interviewed by Newt Gingrich. Look, isn't that cool? And she goes, oh, yeah. Have you talked to your sister lately? And I went, yeah, Mom, I texted her yesterday. I'm on TV. It's CNN. I'm on TV. And she goes, what about your brother? And I look over at her nurse, and her nurse just is grinning like, oh my God. And I'm like, this is nothing. You cannot impress this woman. She's not going to give me any props. She's not going to say, oh, wow, that's so cool. Ooh, nothing. She just, yeah, all right. So anyway, it was funny. CNN, mom is not impressed at all. Ridiculous.
If you were talking to people who are buying their homes and they don't want to be your victim, what's your advice? What should they be doing?
You have to monitor your title. You have to make sure that nothing is changing on the title work of your home. And people aren't going to do that. You pay a service to do it, just like you would someone to monitor your credit. You pay a service. They can monitor it constantly. And that's really like, that is the best advice. If someone doesn't want to pay, well then they've got a lot of work ahead of them. Unless somebody is monitoring that title, you are always at risk. And it's a very, very easy crime.
And do you think there are probably more people doing that today as they learn how easy it is?
I think when I was doing it, it was in its infancy. And in the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've been seeing more and more articles. I've been seeing more and more programs about it. So it's definitely huge.
So the risk is actually growing every year.
It's a far easier crime now than it was 10 or 15 years ago.
So if you like the video, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, help me out. Also, I have a book that I just published with a new cover, super cool. It's called Bent. It's about a homeless kid that grew up on the streets of Miami that ultimately became one of the most prolific counterfeiters in the cyber industry, chased by the Secret Service. It's a super cool story. Also, my book's available. You can go on, it's called Shark in the Housing Pool. And I appreciate you watching the video, and see ya.